Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another awesome episode of the Man Behind Ministry podcast. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Smith of the Virgin Street Church. Very, very good friend of mine that we have coming on today. Go way back to our days in college. Man, I wouldn't say we've made it, but we definitely struggled together when we were in college. So let's just say we're in a better spot now than we were years ago. Very good friend of mine from the Northside Church of Christ there in California, Minister Stephen Lionel Sims. Y'all got to give us full. He already know how we roll. Stephen Lionel Sims. Definitely glad to have him on. Excited, just all the insight that he's going to provide, not only a little bit into his life, but just from his perspective of ministry. Definitely looking forward to it, y'all. If you're here with us for your first time, again, we do this every Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. I ain't gonna waste no more time, y'all. Let's go ahead and get into it. Pastor Sims, how you doing, bro?
Solid, man. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good, man. Again, like I said in the intro, man, it's great to have you on.
Man, it's really good to see you, man. It's really good to be here and be a part of this. I'm enjoying myself already. Just getting started.
Good, man. Good. You ready to get into it, bro?
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Nice, nice. One of the things that I found that was very interesting about you, that was actually very, very similar to me. Like me, you after our collegiate time at Southwestern, you migrated back to your hometown in California. Kind of talk to us about your experience. I know I have my experience going back home, being with family, ministering to them. Kind of tell us about your experience going back to your hometown, where you placed your roots, and now being their minister and pastoring them in ministry?
Oh man. Wait, hold on. First of all, I got to address the fact that you said we suffered together. We did not suffer together. We did not suffer. Suffering is way too light of a word. Way too light of a word. We made it out, and I'm thankful to God to see you alive and well and in your right mind. I'm so happy.
Yes, sir. My sentiments exactly.
But honestly, the plan was always to come home. Well, from the time I, knew no matter what avenue of ministry I took, because I really, wasn't sure about it. But the plan was always to come home. But it happened way, way sooner than I thought. So it's like to come home, like almost, I think within a year and a half of graduating. It was a little bit strange because I'd actually lost a lot of confidence in going home. Okay. Because the congregation I grew up at, I'm literally ministering 20 minutes from where we were right now. So like the congregation I grew up at, like when I went home, it was like maybe my senior year in college. Yeah. They kind of, I talked to one of the guys there, and they were having an annual gospel meeting that they always had. And they were saying, we went with somebody for the gospel meeting, and we were going to go with you, but we didn't think you were ready. And so that actually threw a really big mental wrench in the whole going home idea. And so, of course, a little while later, I wasn't even planning on going home like that. Opportunity came because I was kind of going back and forth between California and like Kansas City and Texas after graduation. And just while I would go home, I'll go home for a couple months at a time. And while I was there, a brother that, went to the church I grew up at, he said, there's a church in Riverside. There's nobody there. So while you're home, do you mind going over there to help out? That church happened to be Northside. And so my relationship, with Northside started with me just helping out while I was there because there was no minister. So eventually just kind of started aligning. I was considering where I was going to kind of lay some roots at that point in life. And Northside, every time I had been home, they had just been asking if I would help out. Because of course, they were in no position to sustain anybody, especially in terms of salary. So when I went home, like I lived with my mom until I got on my feet, ministering back at home. But I always knew, like, if I'm gonna be at home, it's gonna be the right opportunity and the right time, and it's gonna be with people who want me there. And it's just like that relationship just started to develop really fast, and so we just kind of solidified the relationship. I was coming home anyway, so I stayed home, and that's how we got here. 8-9 years later, something like that. Okay. So it's been incredible.
Man, you talk about we made it out of Southwestern. I just heard the train in the background, man. Are you sure you're not in the
No. Let me tell you about PTSD though. I promise you, we moved out here and we found this really, really nice house that we were like, this is a great location for both of us. This is a great neighborhood for both of us. And then we came in, I checked the house out, walked around, I was like, this is great. So we did our moving all in like one day. Yeah. And so we got here and we were just moving all day. The first night we stayed in this house, I hear this loud train horn and the house starts rumbling.
Oh my God.
Just like it did when we were in JS, bro. It was exactly the same because right on the other side of the wall of our community are train tracks. Wow. And now every day I have to relive my Southwestern experience, bro. Every day.
As the saying is true, Southwestern I will remember, and you have one of the worst memories that one can have of our college days. Sticking with Southwestern.
I wake up at 3:00 in the morning, smelling Thelma. In cold sweats.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Miss Zimmerman's class at 8 a.m.
Exactly. Man, sticking with our Southwestern time, man. A lot of times when we were, of course, we had our student devotions, we had our chapel time, and we always kind of, how it is being people, we always try to label each other, right? And it's not always a bad thing. For you, one of the things that always came to mind when I looked at your preaching, your style of delivery, I always thought about your days at the youth conference. Those of us who know you pretty much youth conference famous. You know, back when it was really a thousand deep, man. Tell us about your youth conference experience in the pageant and just how that just impacted your delivery and how you preach.
Oh man, I've actually, that's funny you mentioned that too, because lately I've been trying to get Kristen to call me Mr. National. She's gonna need to put some respect on my name.
Sister Sims, if you're watching, Kristen, I need you to put some respect on my boy's name. He is forever our Mr. National Youth Conference. Put some respect on his name.
It's really fun to joke about that now, because like, man, it was so hard to shake being called pageant boy everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's fun now, but and then though, it really did, it gave me the comfort to honestly, because when I got to I wasn't trying to preach. I wasn't trying to be a preacher or anything.
Right.
It was pageant that gave me stage experience, but I didn't do pageant because I wanted to preach. I only did pageant because I was familiar with doing poetry. Yeah. And that was my introduction to stage. And so, like, nice. When I was writing for pageant, I kind of considered to be an extension of poetry, okay. Which is what I had already been engaged in. And so I had already done like a spoken word in front of people. And then, of course, being heavily church involved, you run into pageant, and then you think, there's a whole bunch of kids like you up there, doing monologues. So I was like, oh, I can write my own. Oh. And so, like, I just went for it. And that kind of gave me the understanding of what it was, number one, to put my spiritual thoughts in presentation form,
right?
And also to understand what poise and stage presence was, and oratory skills and communication in that regard, because even today, like to this day, I don't use notes when I preach, because my introduction to speaking isn't from a manuscript or a PowerPoint or any kind of platform. It's, learn the information, look at the audience, connect with the people that you're talking to, because you're trying to get an experience of conversation when you present, because I don't like being talked at. Not many people like being talked at. And so when you speak, make sure you understand what you're trying to say, make sure you're being genuine, and all those skills I was learning in pageant. And so when I kind of started preaching, it kind of started, there was this poetry pageant kind of crossover, I guess, because I got made fun of a lot when I was in college for for preaching like a poet. Like they'd be like, give Lionel like a lapel because he's gonna hold the mic like a rapper. I got in trouble for so many different audio. They were like, bro, let the top of the mic go, like you're not in a cipher. So it's like, all these are just like crossover skills that I
it just bleeds into each other, man. Just bleeds into each other.
I don't like this.
Hey.
I don't know where this comes from.
It's all right, man. But now that's beautiful, man. So you mentioned you don't preach from notes. So how do you, I guess for a lot of people, the struggle with not having notes is staying on time. Like, how do you help yourself stay on task to where you're not going over or you're not too short?
Oh, I go over.
Okay, I say there's got to be a give somewhere.
Yeah. Gotcha. But because ironically, it used to be I go short for that same reason. I would only do it a long time, but I guess when you start preaching and you get familiar with the environment and the history of preaching, you kind of start tailoring your personality to fit the history of the craft.
Yeah.
And so, I just over time started preaching like guys that I heard and admired preach. Like if they took a long time preaching, of course, I would figure out what it means to take a long time preaching. They took 10 minutes on the introduction. I started taking 10 minutes on an introduction. And honestly, it was kind of to fit in. Because I kind of hated walking through ministry feeling like I was different from everybody, and so I kind of started doing things. Because like sometimes I look at myself like, you could have done that in like 20-25 minutes, and not repeated yourself as much and not gone on different, unnecessary repetitive rants. It's like you could have, but I'm trying even now to kind of wean myself off of that. So, I always believe that you have to be familiar enough with the information to communicate it or convey it in an honest way. Yeah. And even if my tone or even if my language isn't perfect when I speak, I learned that people appreciate when they feel that you're talking to them, from a genuine place. And that's what my ministry is, and that's what I believe in. So It's like if I have the understanding and I have what I'm trying to say locked down, then I try to present it as that way. And so I am thinking in real time, but I have an understanding enough to where we're trying to go, so that I can convey the message. But yeah, even right now, I'm trying to like lower it down to where they get in with like 25, 30 minutes and be out.
Yeah, and I think that's wise because I think that structure that you kind of have established was profitable for a non-live stream, non-COVID environment. Now that you have an audience that's online, let's be honest, our attention span is not, you know, if we're in person, okay, I'm there with you, then I have to kind of, I'm in that environment. But if I'm looking at a screen, it can be challenging. So now that definitely makes sense. And it reminds me of our college days where, you know, when we're in Dr. Maxwell's classes and we're going through the different types of speeches, different types of homiletics. You're talking about manuscript, keyword, or are you going off memory? So I know a lot of times when I would preach in our student devotions, I would kind of one time I preach, I'd do manuscript. The next time I would do keyword. The next time I would do, off memory, just to kind of get comfortable doing everything. Cause you never know, like there was a time where had my whole sermon prepped, got in the car, left, and didn't even bring my iPad. So I ain't got no notes. You know what I'm saying? So, but fortunately, having that experience with going off the dome, and they let you know, okay, do you really know your material? And so it was kind of trial by fire. Do I know what I'm talking about? You know what I'm saying? And so,
Exactly.
Yeah, and it does, like you said, it does convey that more intimate level of communication, because everybody want to feel, okay, are you talking to me, like you said, or are you talking at me? I love it.
And even if people who do manuscript, it's just like when it starts, those moments when it starts getting good to you and you're in tune with what you're saying, and exactly, you just, everything else just kind of goes out the window. Now you and them are engaged in this moment, and I love that.
Right. Okay. You talked earlier about just the lack of confidence or just the pressure of just dealing with, being back home, and some of the conversations that were had is crazy because I had some of my own. People telling me, yo, you're not ready, or you're not fit to be a minister. It's like, okay. So, or when I'm actually ordained, people leaving. And it's like, I ain't even got here yet. I ain't even left Texas yet, and you already leaving? You know what I mean? So I totally understand that. And so obviously that can be a stressful predicament, disposition to be in. And so we've kind of learned, I'm sure you've learned, especially with life and your experiences with marriage and, managing a church family and whatnot. With that stress, you got to find ways to kind of de-stress and unwind and relax. And so to you, when you're not preaching, when you're not dealing with ministry and church obligations, what's Lionel doing to relax and just kind of de-stress?
I've been working on that two ways lately. Number one is I'm trying to learn how to approach ministry from a position of having a peaceful heart.
Okay.
I'm learning that it's actually okay to go through ministry without letting everybody else's situations toss you all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
And you can still be completely engaged and completely loving and completely involved in what other people deal with and go through, and trying to minister to people without it being an overwhelming burden on your heart. And so I'm just tiptoeing in that territory, like trying to figure out what that means. And I'm having some success in that regard, just so that my peace is constant, and I don't have to be so heavy, because like my natural inclination is very introverted, and so I can't be around people long at all. It's actually bad. I should probably get it checked out. Like I have to decompress.
Yeah.
And it's really bad. And sometimes it's just like, no, not even something like, oh, that's just Lionel being Lionel. It's like, no, it's like sometimes it really is hard to function in ministry with my temperament, I guess, because I need a lot of space from people, but at the same time I'm engaged with people a lot. So trying to balance that is really important to me right now. But right now also, especially for the past couple of months, Mondays.
Okay.
Intentionally. Somebody told me a long time. Monday is the International Preacher's Day off. So I was like,
That's
all
the
right, I'll
Sabbath,
take
baby.
that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'll take that. So now, like on Mondays, and I'm trying not to feel guilty about just like taking it off on Mondays. But I don't even mean that from a productivity standpoint. Sometimes I don't even do nothing. I'm just stressed all day because I'm thinking about ministry.
Yeah.
But on Mondays now, honestly, I go to the beach and watch the sunset, and that's it.
I was gonna
Like,
say you in Cali.
put
That's
no obligation.
Yeah. Okay.
It's expensive enough to live here, man. So it's like I'm just gonna take advantage of every perk I can while I got it.
Everything that's free,
and it's part of why I wanted to be home. Exactly right. When it comes to just giving yourself the space to say like whatever it is you want to be on your heart, let it be on your heart. It really does give a lot of focus to the other areas, because now it's just like my purpose and plan for this moment is to just enjoy being present with God and with my own thoughts and with whatever it is. I'm not going to stress myself out over life here. I'm not going to put too much on my shoulders here. We're just going to sit and we're just going to enjoy what it means. If I want to get something, that I enjoy eating or just that I enjoy listening to, it's just like, we're just going to sit and we're going to vibe, and that's it. And so that's my Monday. And that's been really, really, really helpful, especially when it comes to being productive the rest of the days. And so like that's what it is for me. And of course there's other things that are like built into my week too. I've started getting really serious about my morning routine, because that's kind of important, especially when it comes to like working out and stuff like that, keeping your mentality together, all that. That's been really important. It's just kind of like pause in the mornings for like a couple of hours to be personally productive, like just tapping in with myself like that has been really key, and it's been really good because it's new to me.
Okay, nice. So you mentioned just going to the beach, which is, I'm jealous. Fortunately, I mean, that's one of the perks of, marrying a woman from California. I got the beach there. So, you mentioned working out. You mentioned music, man. What's some of your favorite artists you listen to? Who's your favorite artist?
I'm a '90s kid. Don't talk to me. If they came after Jay-Z and Nas, I don't know who they are.
Okay.
Lately, I have no idea. Where have I been lately? Honestly, I've been curating a lot of '90s R&B lately. Okay. That's been my wave. That's been in my mind a lot. Just different pieces of I'd say like probably more so mid to late '90s. Lauryn Hill. I've been playing her songs over and over and over and over. I mean,
the content to me was better in the '90s. It was just it's content. Now it's repetitive. It's like, okay, everybody sound the same.
Yeah.
There's no individuality.
Yeah. It's in. I try my hardest not to be like the millennial that hates on Gen Z. Yeah, I try not to be it, but it's just like, honestly, when it comes to connecting with the content, I really like the vibe that's been curated with the music lately. I think like the Afro beats area is special. Okay. I gotta like drill music is a guilty pleasure. Gotcha. It's a guilty pleasure because it's for sure. But when it comes to like small pockets, I like what guys are doing creatively. I like that there's kind of the restrictions kind of that we had in our generation of music, like in the 2000s. I like that the restrictions sometimes of the artists are kind of coming off, and so different artists are exploring different styles and different sounds, and they're not afraid to find new lanes, and I think that's great. It's just sometimes at a fundamental level, the soul of the music isn't really my speed, because it's just like the conversations that they're having with each other are just kind of like they're either overly emotional, meaning that there is no real substance beyond what somebody's feeling, or it's so gaudy or it's so heady that I can't even connect to who you are as a person. And so it's not necessarily the sound that I have issue with technically, even though I'm not a big fan of the direction of rap like that, but it's more so like I can't really connect to the soul of the music. Honestly, it's kind of why I miss Nipsey so much, man. When he passed, of course, it was a big deal in LA, California, but it's just like you miss artists that actually, even if you don't necessarily share their life experience, you appreciate the way that they approach their context. the way that they deal with their circumstances, the way that they, manage their resources, all that kind of stuff is important. And so it's like the sound is okay, but I find myself, of course, being an old man and still digging into the crates. So
yeah, and that's really become a thing. Like holistically, like there's been a retro feel or just a callback to childhood. I don't know if it's because it reminds us of a better place or what. Because it's like not just retro music, but cartoons, Rocco, Rugrats, Animaniacs. Like people are reverting back to that. Even like clothing, people are reverting back to like retro. Like that's why I love Big Sean. He's big on like retro clothing. You know what I'm saying? You mentioned Nipsey, and I've never said this out loud, but it's been a quiet like pet peeve of mine, especially like with the advent and rise of social media. It's like everybody hops on the wave. I'll be honest. Whenever Nipsey died, I was like, who is Nipsey?
Yeah.
And so like when a lot of like Cali and locals are talking about Nipsey, y'all know him. You know what I'm saying? Like some people in Cali know him personally, obviously. When I saw, I was like, do y'all even really know who Nipsey Hustle is? Some of y'all really just fronting. Y'all just seeing the post and you just sharing it. Or because he was a Crip, or you know what I'm saying, he rocking your favorite color, you just kind of rolling with it. I'm like, man, some of y'all don't even really know Nipsey. Y'all just kind of riding the wave. That's something I've never said out loud, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it for the sake of I'm talking to a Cali dude. Yeah, tell me about that, man.
Man, bro, I really appreciate it because honestly, when he when Nipsey died, I was like, I didn't know that he wasn't big in other places. I think because now I've been back home for 8 years, and so I was like, I didn't know that they didn't know. And so, like, for me, I'm not even like a huge LA rapper kind of guy. Like, of course, I love our West Coast legends, but like, I love rap from New York. I like content from like
Jay-Z
all
now,
across the Midwest, especially. I love Chicago rap.
I'm Chicago.
Like, so
I'm Chicago music. Period. Anything Chicago, anything tied to Kanye, you already know that's a whole.
That it just didn't miss the whole from Ye to Lupe, even before the Common, down to
John Legend, like even just R&B, John Legend, like
man, from like 05 to like 2015, like the world was Chicago. From 2000, Chicago was just killing. But oh my god, but with Nipsey, it was like me personally, I was actually modeling a lot after him before he died. I'll tell you a story. Actually, the day that he died, I was in LA preaching at the Compton Avenue Church of Christ in the morning, and I was scheduled to preach at Metro Church of Christ in the evening. And when I'm in LA, Nipsey has a store, the Marathon store that he got shot at.
I've seen it.
It's Crenshaw and Slauson. And my plan was exactly this. It was to preach at Compton Avenue in the morning, go out to lunch with the young adults. After I go out to lunch, I'll probably have some time to kill between services. So I can, after lunch, go to the Marathon store real quick to pick up some shirts because I need some new ones. And then I can go to Metro that evening because, that was just the layout for the day. It took us forever after worship service to find a place to eat. And we ended up being at the restaurant like super late. And so I had to go straight from the restaurant to the church, to Metro. And when I got to Metro, I pulled up. Somebody was like, Nipsey Hustle just got shot. I was like, all right, I have no idea what that's about, but it was like a little girl, so I was like, I don't know how bad it is. I'll check it out later, they say anything. So like during service, people start fidgeting, and like everybody in there is like kind of like, and this is an evening service at a church, and so people are like, what's what's going on? And somebody announces it like during the service, like Nipsey Hustle just got shot. So it's like out there, people knew, everybody knew what because and it was in front of his store, obviously, but it's just like what he was doing was so much a part of the LA culture that is understandable why he would be big in one location as opposed to nationally. He was really huge on the mixtape scene, and so he had put out a lot of music. And it was like sell out the trunk of the car kind of music. He was making CDs, so he was really local. He was opening for big acts. Of course, we went to see the On the Run tour with Beyonce and Jay-Z. He was an opener for them at their On the Run tour at the Rose Bowl. Out here in LA, because I know they switch it up, but in LA he opened for them, and so we got to see him there. And so even just watching and listening to his evolution as an artist, it's no wonder why after his passing, so much of his content is surfacing. Like a lot of his interviews are just going over social media because the world is starting to see what he was to us, and how we were looking at him. And so the way he just invested specifically in his community
Right.
was huge, not just in that store, but also he was a big part of bigger projects like Vector 90, which was, I think, a shared workspace. He was partnering with the city, like community organizations, a lot. And so when you get rappers that are really have really big names that do that kind of thing, like, you take notice.
Yeah.
And so Nipsey was really a huge community icon, above other things. So it's just like the love and respect that we had for him was on a different level. And so that's why it's just like, how does this Crip who has one studio album get a funeral at the Staples Center? It's like, he was a big name out here, you know. Everybody was at that funeral, everybody. And so it's like, it's no wonder, because he put in so much work. And I looked at him from a personal standpoint as kind of a blueprint of what to do, even with the church, because he could have gone wide and he could have tried to make a large and expansive career, but he didn't. He focused specifically on his community, and his community became an example for the rest of the world. Like, his whole brand, he could have called it anything, but he went global with the Crenshaw across the chest. It's just like, that's meaningful, because when you do local ministry, you figure out how to tap into the people that need your help when you have the resources. And so learning that of him, and at the same time, just like respecting the way he approached music, I loved his flow. I mean, even his studio album, that being his only one, just listening to the maturity that he had in approaching music and life was just inspiring on a different level. Even his last songs that he made with like Khaled, with Higher, it's just like, you learn people's approach to things and you learn how to respect that. And so I was just like, even like with Kristen, she was like, she didn't know who Nipsey Hustle was. I was like, you know what, I kind of get it, you know. But it's like, he was just, you know, one of those names, like, people out here know it, but it was just really, really heavy.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. I just had to, thanks for obliging me, because I had to get that off my chest. And I think only
for sure,
a Cali local would understand where I'm coming from. Because I was like, I mean, I'm sad the man passed, but I'm like, okay, let me kind of do some research on who he is, you know, and whatnot. So, but no, I love that, and you kind of hit it right on the head, bringing that back to ministry and how, hey, he was about the community, he was a man of the people. And a lot of times in ministry, we want to get the glitz and the glamour, we want to get on the marquee, you know, flyers, we want to be out there on the national programs, X, Y, and Z. But there's something to be said about the person that has, and indeed has the caliber to be that, but he is very intentional about, no, I'm going to be local, I'm going to take care of home. Like, these are the people that are actually helping me make it. These are the people that are actually, you know, shoulders and arms locked with me, you know, affecting, changing the community. So I appreciate that. And so that actually gives me more insight into Nipsey. Like, you hear stuff, but it's nothing like talking to someone who's actually from there and actually, you know, was really affected by it. So I appreciate that, man.
Oh yeah.
I mentioned, like, even just with Nipsey, you know, talking about studying and reading up on someone. That's obviously big in terms of preaching and ministry. Outside of reading the sacred text, we know it's important to have some secular perspectives that kind of help aid the message that we're trying to communicate with the word. So outside of the sacred text, we know we study that. What are some books or you know, that you're into, some maybe that you've read that have kind of helped you along your way in ministry?
For sure. And this books is a hard category for me, because like, I love all kinds of books. Like, I like being innovative with book choices too. Like, because I'm not always like a church growth book kind of guy, or like a preacher book kind of guy. I really like to glean insights based off from abstract sources. I don't know how I function like that, but it's just like, sometimes I just like reading stories about ministry, or I like reading stories about, you know, people who just do great things in any context, and just kind of try to glean from their experiences in life. But as far as like personally, and like a book that's really I go through it several times. It's called The Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer.
Okay.
That's a book that I love, because it is very much so spiritual. It's very much so personal, and it gives you the life experience of a disciple from the vantage point of everybody is trying to do the same thing, and that is pursue God.
Right.
And it's just like, honestly, I love those kinds of books. Where they're both, you know, theological, a little bit philosophical, kind of human, because it's just, I value approaching God from that standpoint, And so lately, especially, I've been looking for books that aren't as practical, but are more so very human, because I believe that anything that we do, from my responsibility and my role as a minister, has to come from the human connection between us and God. And it's just that level of genuineness is really important to me. So those are my books that I've been delving into personally a lot. I have a book, like a slew of business books that I'm trying to step into right now, but those are really more so out of responsibility, because, you know, there's things that we try to start at the church that are practical, you know, like grant funding, stuff like, you know, a small church organization. And so it's like those books I've been getting and I've been liking, but those are more obligations than anything. And so those are kind of like, like I'll pick it up, but it's just like I'm gonna scan through it, I'm gonna see what I can glean. I would much rather have this in a summary, because, you know, I want it to be practical. But those books are a requirement for me. But it's like I really love the books that really challenge and engage the way we approach God from a very real place. Nice. But aside from that A.W. Tozer book, goodness, there's another book that I just read recently that I love. It is it's an audiobook. Where do I have it by? N.T. Wright. There we go. N.T. Wright. How God Became King. I like that book.
I heard about that one
right now, but I like that one a lot. So those are two, I guess, at the top of my head that are into it. But right now, I'm like in my book search, that's kind of the direction that I've been going.
Okay, good. So you mentioned How God Became King, and what was the first one you mentioned?
The Pursuit of God. Okay. By A.W. Tozer. And I try to look at other things by A.W. Tozer too.
Yeah. Now, I'm like that too with books, with movies. If I find a good actor, okay, what else are they in? You know, I'm like that too. So I get it. Nice, man. You mentioned with the books you read, you're more into books that give that human angle, that human perspective. And I love that, because this is really what this whole medium is about. Not more so, we talked a little bit about preaching and ministry, that's cool. But just more so like who you are as a person outside of the suit. I know you very well. Nah, I know you. Inside joke, don't freak out. That's my boy. No, but you know, of course, we went to college. We're brothers. You know, I was there. Yeah. I was a part of your wedding. You know what I'm saying? So like, I know you from your family. Got to meet your mom, meet your sister, and your family and whatnot. And so, obviously, we know that we're good as ministers as seeing the member, seeing the congregant and parishioner as human, but unfortunately we're not. That's not always reciprocated. You know, we know how we're viewed as, even though a lot of us don't try to put on a holier than thou persona, but because of what we do, that's placed on us. We're in that glass house. We're viewed as, hey, we have to adhere to this godly standard that no man can do except God himself. But somehow we're up there, in that upper echelon. And so looking at that, man, there may be some members, who are tuned in now. There may be some fellow ministers, who know us and, are tuning in. There may be, maybe there's someone like, hey, okay, I know Lionel, I appreciate him. And hey, I'm not really a churchgoer, but I love his perspective. Maybe there's someone who's not really in the church, but they're like, hey, we know how it is. Hey, I'm not very religious, but I'm really spiritual. So looking at that relationship between minister, member, pastor, and people, what would you say to kind of help that perspective and kind of help people see us as people?
Honestly, I'm gonna be 100%, bro. We're not people, and we're not gonna be people. And Jesus, that question. I know. Mentally, that's not even what's been on my mind lately. That's been on my mind since the beginning of ministry. Is the humanity of us, because I approached ministry from a human. Actually, you know what? Southwestern taught me a lot. Southwestern taught me that there were actually people that had a minister persona. Like they actually, there was actually a characteristic. There was such a thing as being preacherly and, pastoral, and, that was a whole thing that you were expected to be. and there's a relationship that you have with your people because of it. You don't let them see you from a personal level. You don't let them know who you with. You don't let them know who you hang out with or what you do privately. And that's, it's an unhealthy relationship between human beings. But
Yes.
if we're just being completely honest, people are in this church thing because they want to know what's in it for them. They want to perpetuate their ideas or their understanding of what holiness is, about what it means to go to heaven, what it means to be a good Christian. They just want the man of God to affirm. And so when you occupy the role as the affirmer of good things, then you don't have the personal space to be a human being, because that's not your role in the world anymore. Nobody's looking at you to be a crier. People are always going to use the statement, I understand that he's a human too, but it's not going to line up with their perspective of you, because everybody has a role that they play in somebody else's life. To some people you're a brother, to some people you're a friend, to some people you're a son. And even like we were talking about at the beginning, being back home, it's just like, I'm a minister, but my mom goes to my church. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I am her son, but at some point I have to say, like, Mom, I just can't, like, no. And so it doesn't matter what I do, because she's always going to see me as her son.
There's nothing you can do about it.
When you see that, when people see you as a minister, to them you are automatically a representative of God. And fair enough, that's what we are. That's the role we play in the world. And ministry isn't just something that you do as a 9-to-5. They know that a minister is who you are. So if they see you at midnight, they expect you to be a minister. If you're an accountant, you can clock out. But if you're a minister, they expect you to be a man of God. Meaning, if they see you at a bar, it's not going to be, hey, there's Lionel at a bar. It's going to be, Brother Sims, what are you doing here? Same question.
Who are you
completely
pastoring
different
to?
questions. Exactly.
Who needs the word right now?
But it's like that. Like, that's the relationship. And it's like, there's nothing that we can do to change that. All we can do is be as human as possible. But and not as human as possible. It's just like, try to show our humanity. But it's just the only thing that our lack of genuineness is hurting is other people's perceptions and our own psyche. Because it's, if people have terrible expectations of you, then sometimes they just gonna have to have that. But also, when it comes to our own honesty with ourselves, I find that to be vastly more important. Because as long as I understand and operate within my own humanity, everybody else just gonna have to deal with it. Because they're not going to bed with me at night. They're not looking in the mirror at me at night. I am. And so I have to be as honest as I can and be a human being. Because if you don't like me because I'm a minister and I'm a human being, it's like, that's a you problem. It's like, I can't. There's nothing I can do about your perception of me. And so if I'm gonna be who I am, but at the same time, on the complete other spectrum of that, I know that I have an obligation to be an example to people. And so it's just like, now I got to be actually cognizant of what I do around certain people, about where I behave. And it's easy to kind of get lost in that and live a completely separate life, because it's just like, I could be doing something I don't even think it's wrong, but I probably wouldn't do it publicly in front of y'all, because you would trip on me if I did. And so I do it privately. And honestly, balancing that from an ethical perspective, from a biblical perspective, is really tough. Because you want to be respectful of the people, and from a genuinely ministerial standpoint, it's like, I don't disregard the fact that I have a responsibility to be a light to people. I don't disregard that. I know that we have to be considerate of the people that may not be as spiritually liberated as you, but it's like, you minister to them too, and it's like, that's a part of the ministry, is the sacrifices you make personally to minister to other people. And so I'm trying to maintain my humanity in its entirety, but at the same time trying to be cognizant of the people around. And so I just try to live a life, when it comes to being a human being, a life that is honestly, genuinely in love with God, but at the same time I can understand what grace I have to give myself and what grace people aren't going to give me. And that's, it's honestly not even something that I figured out, and just trying to balance it. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's good. You mentioned, just couldn't have said it better myself. You mentioned your mother, and just how, regardless of you being the minister, she's going to see you as her son. And we'll be transparent. Many people know my mother's passed. She's deceased. She passed away. And we had those same conversations. because my mother and I personality wise, we were the same. Like, and so there was always a clash there. But now you look at it now, you're like, you know what? I'm glad she saw me as her son, because that's at least one person that understands both. Okay, I see him as my son, but I also see him like, wow, my son has become this. So there's that's one person that's able. It's a struggle at first, but that's one person that's able to deal with that balance and understand. Okay, hey, I've raised him, and God has blessed him to become this. And you wish, honestly, there were more people. I wish there were more people like my mother who could say, okay, hey, yeah, I helped raise you. I watched you grow up, but I also respect what you do because I understand that God brought you here. And so cherish your mother, cherish those people who are struggling and are doing their best to see you as both, because you got a group of people who will only see you as one. Definitely cherish that, man.
Yeah. Oh man, and trying to learn what it is for people to genuinely see as both has been interesting. Because like that's exactly what you say, and it's like I don't take it for granted. Like my every day, more and more, like I understand. Like, and right now, of course, my heart, it grieves very deeply with you. It's just like I do take that to mind and to heart, and I hug my mother very tight.
Yeah.
Because I know that she won't always be here,
right.
And that I don't like entertaining the thought, and so to live in it is a nightmare. And so it's like when you know that, it's like at the same time, I guess I'm evolving and learning what it means to be viewed as a minister, but I'm also learning how much control I have over that personally. Right. And people are going to view me, for the most part, of course, everybody has their own perception, but people are going to view me in accordance with what I personally invest my energy and time and attention in. Yeah. And so now I'm learning, like, I'm okay if my mother views me as her son. It's just like, I just want her to view me as her son who was gifted by God to share, whatever it is he does with people, and he does it with genuineness. And so I believe that nuance is important when it comes to how we view anybody. And I would love to have that, and how people view me as well. It's just like, like Kristen's like, he's my husband, but it's like I don't have to go to church and call him Brother Sims. It's like I know that this is a husband who is a genuine man of God, and it's like I know who he is at home, and that's the reason why I have a level of respect for his ministry, and that's what's more important now, because just I don't want the posture, the stature of being a minister. I want to be known for the type of minister that I genuinely am. And even when it comes to that experience of going home, and it was maybe a few months, maybe last year actually, I had an experience that was really I haven't shared it before, but it meant the world to me. The lady who actually took us to those youth conferences, she was our ride or die for ministry. She was the advocate for the youth at Rancho when I was growing up. And she was there wasn't a bigger fan of me than her, because she believed in me. And she was the one that made sure I got all my paperwork in from pageant. She was making sure that I was enrolled and stuff. She was everything. And so now she goes to Northside. Nice. And so it's like, it's not just like, oh, I knew you when you were a kid. It's like, no, I've literally walked with you through everything that you became. From the very first time you stood up to do pageant, from the very first time you stood up to do communion, I was there. And so I had been going through something at the church at that point where people knew that a lot of heat was coming my way. And like it was just like onslaughts, because like when people are upset with something that you do, they just get nasty. And so like and so like one day after service, like in the middle of, as we were kind of going through it, because it was like weeks and weeks and weeks, but that it was going on, but she came to my office like after service, and we were talking for a second, and she was like, I was really concerned about you, when all of this was going on. But then she stopped and she said, but then you know what? I wasn't worried about it completely, because I had to remind myself, you're built for this. You're a godsend, and God has put you in this position and uniquely molded you to do what it is, he's called you to do in this moment.
Yeah.
And like, I can't tell you the way that fulfilled a lot of my life ministry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I heard that from her, I was honestly, this is one of those moments where I can say, like, honestly, I can retire now.
Yeah.
I mean, because what more could I possibly accomplish in life than to show the people that helped raise me that they did well?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
I'm honestly honored to my soul that I had that experience and that she said that, because I was just like, that's what I mean to do. Like, I want you to know who I am from top to bottom, and to know that in light of everything, like, I'm doing this from the bottom of my heart genuinely, and I'm trying. It's like, because I want you to know that, and you tell me that you see that and you have more faith in me than I even have in myself right now. It's like, that was such an unfamiliar conversation for me to have.
Yeah.
I had never heard somebody have faith in me like that and believe in me to that capacity, and like, to hear from somebody who actually saw you in your development. I mean, she was walking me through when I was in high school.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
middle school and high school, like, that's
Right.
when we're the absolute most vile human beings in the world.
Southwestern is
It's
kind of
like
close too, because
man,
Southwestern brings out
like
the best and worst in you.
Exactly. And even being in Southwestern, it's just like, when you know people from there and you can meet them later on in life or down the walk of life, and you can tell that they're genuinely ministering from the soul, it means the world.
Yeah.
Even if people you knew were struggling before, even if they were going through it themselves, it's just like, you're really genuinely happy to see people, man, start ministering from a genuine spirit.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how I got to that specifically, but
good. That's exactly why we have this.
Yeah,
that's why we have
this.
That's it, man. That's it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of we'll close with this thought. You talk about this influence from other places. If you haven't seen Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, it's your fault. I don't care if this spoils it for you. All right. Reminds me of, really, it's in 1 and number 2. Queen Rwanda. Whenever T'Challa and Shuri were going through it, what was her line? Show them who you are.
Who you are.
That's right. And so that's, whether, regardless of who you are, and that's a lesson for all of us, whether you're a minister, somebody working a 9-to-5, church leader, member, just a human. Main thing is, hey, show people who you are, man. Doc, we appreciate you so much, brother. Blessed us, man.
I appreciate you.
You'll be proud in like manner of going off memory. This has been the longest episode that we've had so far on the podcast, right? So appreciate you, man. It's been great, man. Before we go, we know this is a social where we talked about live streaming and all that kind of stuff earlier, man. Before we go, tell us, how can we find you if we're in California, if we are, on virtually, how can we find you and the church via social media?
Yeah. Come through. See, it's Northside Church of Christ in Riverside, California. Of course, there's Northsides everywhere, but I've noticed on Google, on YouTube, on Instagram, Facebook, Northside Church of Christ Riverside will get you to us. We're the circle logo with the N on it. Blue is our colors. But tap in with us if you're coming through the building. 3150. That's not my church. It's 3370 Columbia Avenue, Riverside, California. Yeah. So that's how you find us.
Again, man, you blessed us. I know everybody, if they've hung on with us the whole way, man, they've been blessed. Those who watch it live and even those on the replay, man, we appreciate you. Remember, we do this every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. If this has blessed you in any way, don't be afraid to like it. Don't be afraid to share it. Let somebody know what God is doing, man. Until we see you again next Thursday, God bless you. God keep you. Peace.
You're welcome.
Good stuff, bro.
Appreciate you, man.